It's funny how some shows, they just like capture a moment, and that's what we're going to be diving into today, a show that did just that, Ally McBeal.
Oh, yeah.
It was this quirky kind of dramedy, legal drama thing, and this is straight from the source material that you sent over. It actually really did change like the landscape of television.
That's what's so interesting about revisiting Ally McBeal today. I mean, on the surface, you have like these crazy courtroom cases, and that theme song.
Oh, that theme
that everybody knows. And then, and how can we forget the dancing baby? The meme that took the internet by storm,
Oh, for sure.
But then, like, under all of that, the show is dealing with some really complex, themes about women, relationships, ambition, stuff that we hadn't really seen on TV at that point.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. What was it about the late 90s that made this show resonate so much?
Well, the late 90s, you got to remember, that was a time of just massive, massive change, especially for women.
Yeah.
The internet was blowing up, women were entering the workforce in huge numbers, and there was this sense of, possibility but also uncertainty, right?
Totally.
And Ally McBeal just, it nailed that feeling.
Yeah. And at the center of it all was Ally herself, and the source material that you send over mentions how she was just a totally different kind of female character, especially back then. What made her so groundbreaking?
I mean, she was just this, fascinating bundle of contradictions, which I think is what made her feel so real to people,
Yeah, totally.
She was brilliant at her job, a great lawyer, but also, really insecure at the same time,
Yeah.
Ambitious, driven, but also wanting that traditional love and family.
And oh my gosh, those daydreams, right?
Yeah.
The dancing babies, giant lipstick.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so out there.
I know, but the source material actually, it points out that those were actually a really smart way to visualize what was going on in Ally's head.
Yeah.
She was dealing with these big questions about who she was, love, her purpose in life. And those weird daydreams, they gave us a glimpse into that, all her anxieties and everything.
That's so interesting you say that, because the piece you sent over, it also mentions how Ally McBeal wasn't afraid to get real, really tackle some serious topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge part of why we're still talking about the show today,
Yeah.
They really went there, talking about things like sexual harassment at work, body image issues. They even dealt with infertility, which
Well, yeah.
those were conversations that people were having in real life, but you just did not see them on TV back then.
So it sounds like the show was pushing boundaries, not just with the quirky humor and stuff, but also with how real it was willing to get with the issues they were dealing with.
Exactly. It wasn't always perfect, and some of it might feel, I don't know, maybe a little dated now, but they were willing to, make people think, have those conversations, challenge what was considered okay to show on TV, which totally paved the way for shows that came after it, to deal with those same themes, but with even more, I don't know, nuance and depth.
Yeah, you mentioned the shows that came after, and the source material actually specifically calls out the influence Ally McBeal had on shows like Sex and the City and The Good Wife. What's the connection there?
Well, Ally McBeal just completely changed how we saw women on TV, especially career women, The women on that show, they were flawed, they were ambitious and funny and vulnerable, all at the same time,
It wasn't just one thing.
Exactly. And before Ally McBeal, you didn't really see that, at least not as much.
Yeah, totally. They were real people, not just characters.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it sounds like that really did open the door for those later shows like Sex and the City to really dive into female friendships and The Good Wife with the whole complexities of women in power. And
Yeah, you can totally draw a line straight from Ally McBeal with all her complexities to the really nuanced female characters we see on TV, nowadays.
Yeah.
It proved that people, audiences, they wanted to see these messy, complicated, more human female characters.
Oh, for sure. And we'd be totally remiss if we didn't mention the music. That Vonda Shepard theme song, I mean, you hear it, you know it. It's instantly recognizable even today.
Oh, I know, right? And the source material, it talks about how crucial Vonda Shepard's music was to the whole vibe of the show, you know? She wasn't just, singing the theme song. She was a character, right? Performing in the bar where they all hung out.
Oh, yeah.
So her music really became part of the show itself, adding this whole other layer to it.
That's so cool. It's kind of wild to think that a show that premiered like over 20 years ago, it can still feel like so relevant now, you know?
It is, right. But, you know, what's interesting is that, like, even though Ally McBeal is, like, very much of its time, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, they had the, like, big cell phones talking about dial-up.
Oh,
the themes, though, like, they're timeless, right? The love, the loss, the ambition, trying to figure out, like, where you fit in. Like, that's, you know.
That's real life.
That's always relevant.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, like, what would an Ally McBeal today even look like, you know? Like, what kind of issues would they be dealing with?
Yeah.
How would Ally be navigating, like, you know, dating apps and social media and, like, the whole gig economy thing? It's kind of fun to think about, right?
It is. And honestly, that might be, like, you know, the coolest thing about the show's legacy, right?
Yeah.
That even after all this time, it still, like, you know, gets us thinking and talking about these things.
It definitely makes you think, well, that's Ally McBeal. A show that, like, defined a generation. And honestly, it still holds up.
Thanks for, you know, diving into this with me. It was really, like, interesting to revisit.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a blast.